Guys and girls, we've made it to the end. Well, that's all, folks. So good morning, Mario, and good morning, Switch fans. I don't know if I could have started in a more ominous way, but what's going on, everybody? It's Zach from SwitchForce. Zelda's out next week, and that is fantastic. It feels so good to say it's out next week. Like, can you believe we made it here? But despite today's announcements of two awesome games, well, one awesome game, it's over, and we really need to dive into what's next for Nintendo. But while you wait for The Legend of Zelda, maybe you need to prep your Switch with a little bit of love, and that love comes in the form of the best memory card on the market for your system. This is the Lexar Play Card, coming in sizes small and huge, like 1 freaking terabyte. That will store all of the Korok seeds you possibly could hold everywhere in the world. All the Korok seeds will fit onto this card, and definitely you'll be able to fit Zelda and Splatoon and Pikmin and all of the games, pretty much any that you want. This is kind of like the one-stop shop to fix your Switch forever and give it the memory it needs. Make sure to click the link in the description down below. Lexar are great people. They've always supported the channel and the show. I appreciate that, and I super appreciate you clicking the link, because even just clicking it helps out the channel, and that's really cool. But let's kick it off with some nice announcements. We got Double Dragon Gaiden Rise of the Dragons announced today. It basically looks like Scott Pilgrim done up Double Dragon style, or basically the other way around. Double Dragon done up Scott Pilgrim style. It's going to bring in 13 brawlers, and it's going to bring in roguelite mechanics, and it's going to bring in action that looks very reminiscent of Ubisoft's Scott Pilgrim game. Now, this is coming this summer to Nintendo Switch and other platforms. It's being published by Modus Games and developed by Secret Base. Honestly, it looks pretty fun if you're into that sort of nostalgic side-scrolling beat 'em up. If you had fun with TMNT last year like I did, then this could be another game for you to get into with a co-op buddy or by yourself. Will it have online? It better. I'm guessing you'll have online, so it could be a nice new co-op title this summer. No set release date. Surprised this wasn't at the Indie World. It would have made the Indie World better. Not great, but better anyhow. It's you know, it's a pixel art game. It looks pretty neat, but I won't belabor the point. What I will say is that they belabored the launch of this next Switch title, which, hey, we got to give them a round of applause, because something is coming out after July 21st. The Switch will not die on July 22nd, because today they announced that finally, after ESRB leaks from ages ago, Biomutant is coming to Nintendo Switch on November 30th. Now, at one point, Biomutant seemed like a really interesting title. It's this open world game where you can kind of create your own rodent. And I don't mean just cosmetically, it's like how you play. If you prefer melee range, you can really dive into skill trees and sort of specify the kind of role and the kind of action hero rat that you want to be. In actuality, the game did not perform all that particularly well. I don't think it's a bad game. It just feels very, very average. It feels very standard in many ways, despite the cutesy, fluffy, plushy exterior. I mean, the rat creatures are cool, and as you create them, like, the character morphs depending on like the skills that you pick. It's a really neat creation system, but then when you actually get into the game, it's just a lot of exploring and combat that feels been there, done that. But that is releasing on November 30th, a Switch thing happening after Pikmin 4, which brings us to our focal discussion, which is that what? Now, there is a sort of guiding force here, which is May the 9th. May 9th is where we will find out, because May 9th is the scheduled investors call for Nintendo. And while these are filled with a lot of boring numbers, they're also filled with Q&A and updates. And in the past, Nintendo has always updated their upcoming releases, and that list has included Tears of the Kingdom. So that list is like basically fine. Doesn't matter what else is on there. Bayonetta 3 was on there for a long time. Metroid Prime 4 has been on there since the beginning of time. But Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was always on there, or sequel to Breath of the Wild was always on there, and that felt gratifying, good, and grounding. Now, technically on May 9th, Tears of the Kingdom will be there, but investors are smarter cookies than that. They won't just crumble at the sight of a Zelda game that's out in a few days. They will know that there's nothing besides Pikmin 4. Pikmin 4 releases on July 21st, and that is it. And so you bet your butts that one of 3 things are going to happen. 1, an investor will ask Nintendo, what's going on? What is happening with your plans for the second half of 2023? You've announced nothing. This is very strange. We want our money. And it's a very, I guess, in-depth conversation, because a lot of people have said, well, maybe Nintendo will just coast. The Switch is insanely successful. Couldn't they just rest on their laurels and continue to sell copies of Mario Kart 8, sell copies of Tears of the Kingdom, sell copies of, I don't know, Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 3, Animal Crossing. And yeah, they could, but when you're talking about shareholders, investors, that does not go over well. We've seen Nintendo stock prices dip because of far lesser concerns. But if you're telling me that Nintendo is going to show up on May 9th and tell their investors that, the Switch is doing so well, we have so much evergreen software, the games continue to perform well, so we're just taking it easy, that is going to tank their stock price. I'm no stock market expert, but I do know that if you admit that you have no product coming out, that is going to be a big no-no for the people that are investing and expecting returns on said investment. But I guess that's option one. I really do not think Nintendo will say, hey, we're just taking it easy, we have nothing to announce. But it's an option. Option two is that shareholder asks, what's coming next for Nintendo? What are we going to do? And Nintendo says, ta-da, here is a fancy new update. Now, I don't think they're going to announce any games at this investors call. That's not something that ever happens. I don't think you'll see like, oh my god, Donkey Kong 2023 just popped up on their upcoming titles. Now, it will still probably say Pikmin 4 and Metroid Prime 4, but they could give us some more context. They could say that, hey, later this summer, we will be having a presentation where we reveal more information about the second half of 2023. And honestly, from there, we have a splintering of two paths. We have one path, which is they just poured a bunch of stuff and release a bunch of like remasters or pseudo remasters. We've heard that Metroid Prime 2 and 3 are coming to the console, not with the same level of remaster as Metroid Prime 1, but with the new controls and maybe with some tightening of some loose screws. So they could have that come. We've heard rumors of Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door remake coming, which could be really cool, probably more of a remaster. They could fill the year with F-Zero and bring in maybe a few other ports that they have yet to bring over, although there's not much remaining from the Wii U era. Nintendo Land? I don't know. Maybe they also throw the evil 1-2 Switch sequel in there that hasn't seen the light of day. They could have a really bummer second half lineup that appeals to some niche hardcore, like Paper Mario would be great, but all in all, it would be lackluster. The other splinter path is that they do have big stuff, and this is where I think Nintendo probably falls. I think they say, hey, we do have a presentation later this year that will reveal more details on our plans. Rest assured, we have a full accompaniment of software for the second half of 2023, and maybe that's when they debut a new Mario, a new Donkey Kong, something huge. I mentioned it earlier in the week, but Nintendo will have a big November game. There's no way they sit out the big holiday season and just say, buy our stuff that's already out there. That's just not the way they operate, and they know that holiday season is ripe for the picking. It's like that big red ripe strawberry, and the giant hungry bear cannot resist. Nintendo is the hungry bear, and November is the red ripe strawberry, and all of the investors are cheering on with their forks and knives, saying, dig in, and Nintendo will. They will have something that isn't Paper Mario Redux, Metroid Prime 3 with minimal updates. They'll have something substantial for November. But there's a third option that I think is the most fun, and that is where an investor says, hey, what is going on for the second half of 2023? And we've heard that you are working on a new console. Somebody better in that investor room bring up the next Switch. And Nintendo's response will be very interesting. There's a good chance that they PR spin it and just say, we have nothing to announce at this time, but I think they're in a sticky situation. They may not be between a rock and a hard place, but they're definitely between a rock and, I don't know, a solidifying space. Like right now they have cushion, but it's erasing fast. Because you cannot tell me that investors are curious and concerned with, you've got nothing announced for the first time this era, what is going on? This is so unprecedented, this is so strange, this is so weird, what is going on? And so Nintendo might need to give a little more juice, a little more brine on the bone than they typically do. They usually are saying like, oh, well, we're always working on new technologies here at Nintendo, but they might have to do something a bit more this time to appease the investors and the curiosity that could kill the stock price. What are you doing? Why are you doing it? When will we know more? Again, I want to set expectations that I don't think next week we hear about the Direct is June 12th. I guess it's not out of the question, but I think we will more get a narrative that will help shape the second half of 2023. I think they will be forced to divulge something about their plans more than, we're always working here at Nintendo. Because Metroid Prime 4 is a completely undated game, and Zelda will be out in a couple of days. And as far as investors are concerned, Zelda's already on the books, right? And Nintendo will have to reveal other things as well, in terms of their anticipated predicted software sales, their hardware sales, and we'll be able to read into that and say, are they predicting a big spike towards the end of the year? Are they really setting their numbers way low for a decline and not much interesting happening? Or are they going shebang because they have a new console? You don't need me to tell you twice that there are rumors of a Switch Pro, a Switch 2 later this year, 2024, and I have put the pieces together to say, like, it's very, very weird that Nintendo has nothing announced. They're waiting this long. They said E3 doesn't fit with their plans. There's probably some event later in the summer that is going to reveal the next big thing. Part of that is copium hopium, and part of that is just, based on the logic, we look at this, what's the reason why Nintendo would not tell you what's coming out? It's not because they don't know. These games aren't going to start development after May 12th when Tears of the Kingdom's out. They're not going to say, okay, now, all teams go make a game. We're going to end up with like a freaking 50 1-2 Switches. No, these games are well in development. In fact, they might even be done. And Nintendo knows. But why wouldn't you tell us? Because you get pre-orders, you get hype, you appease investors, you look good. You really can monopolize the market in that way when you already set established expectations for your audience to earmark, I want that game. I want that game. And it's not like Zelda needs its own place. Zelda is going to do perfectly fine. And then you add in all these other strange nuances, like why did they rush the Xenoblade 3 final DLC so fast? If they have nothing the second half of the year, why is that there? Why did they give 1 week's notice and say, ta-da, it's out? Why not say that for September? Why not say that for October? If there's really nothing coming, wouldn't that be a great way to use DLC to buffer the gaps in your release schedule? But clearly they didn't need to. They put out Xenoblade Chronicles DLC the same week as Advance Wars and right before Zelda for no good reason other than they actually have big plans for the second half. I don't want to commit to a new console 100%, but I think either that or a bunch of really exciting games, for some reason they are withholding, and there's definitely something lurking there. They will not coast, that looks terrible to investors. They will not skip the red, ripe, juicy strawberry of November, and they would not have rushed out so much in this spring season if they did not have more in store. Yes, Zelda is huge and can carry you far, but it cannot carry you to not release games the rest of the year. And for as much as I love Pikmin, the little squishy garden guys are some of my favorite goblins. That is not a massive seller. So what are you going to do after Zelda? You're not going 7 months without a big hit. You're not going 7 months without Pokemon, without Mario, without Animal Crossing, without anything. It's just not going to happen. May 9th will be our first inkling of what's coming, and that's exciting because this isn't from rumor rats, this isn't from leakers, this isn't from speculative research, this is from Nintendo themselves telling us, hey, here's a little bit of what to expect because those investors are going to be hungry and they're going to be curious. Why haven't you said anything? Why is nothing announced? What are we doing here? Make us many gold coins. So let me know what you think is going to happen on May 9th. I am very, very much anticipating this investor call, the questions, the translations, the releases, the numbers, the projections. It's all going to help paint a better picture of what's happening in 2023, and that's next week. That's less than a week. That's before Tears of the Kingdom comes out. So before we go gaga for Link's latest, we'll know a little bit better what the heck Nintendo's planning. And again, they're planning something. They're not going to coast. But for now, I'll coast my way out of here. Thank you so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive. Love you all a lot. Until next time, SwitchForce out.